Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock, a live stream January 26th. We are back with XTM, paid in Canada, XTMIF over the counter. Marilyn Schaefer, the CEO. Marilyn, welcome back.
Thank you.
Marilyn, so for anybody that's just tuning in, of course, our program, Next Super Stock live stream, is all about featuring those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential, stocks going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point and with multiple catalysts in place to ignite that massive increase in shareholder value. And of course, XTM, I think we're right at that inflection point right now where, all of a sudden things are starting to cook. You have the reopening of restaurants happening. Everything is coming back. You're going to the U.S. market. A lot of great things are starting to happen for XTM as we speak.
We sure are. Yes.
So I want to focus today on a couple of things. You had some interesting news you put out this week, which is I don't know if people really understood like the significance of it or like read into it too much, but essentially. One of the things that you said was like 99%. Actually, for anybody that's new, we should actually explain what you do. But the bottom line is that XTM is revolutionizing the $1 trillion restaurant and services industry, with their fintech platform, and we'll kind of get into all the details. But so it's a massive market opportunity, and so I think people have been worried that when they think of restaurants, they think, okay. The world was shut down for 2 weeks. What's going on? And you put out this news saying, what, 99% of your customers are up and running?
Yeah, and which is, that's a really interesting data point. We were doing a bit of blue sky ourselves and looking at our market, and it told us three things. So for those of you who don't know what XTM does, in a nutshell, we provide earned wage and gratuity access to the staff of our restaurants. We provide it in a fully digital kind of environment. So it's a mobile wallet, it's a prepaid, like a debit card, and an.
Oh, Marilyn, I'm sorry. The mic. Hang on. I think your mic went on mute. Okay, you were saying?
Okay, right. So it's with a prepaid. So it's basically what we have is a mobile wallet, an app, and a debit card that enables you to receive your funds same day with very little operational inflection. So that's our solution in a nutshell. And what we've been able to do is basically sign most of the Canadian restaurant groups to our platform. And that press release was really important because it told us three things. So the fact that most of our restaurants, over 99.7% of them, are still going concerns despite the pandemic issues that impacted restaurants. There's three things. First of all, we have the right target. We've been targeting restaurant groups, and these are restaurants that can withstand ups and downs of the industry. They've got enough, depth and breadth to be able to manage that. The second thing is that these, they're operationally focused. So what they've really done is they have really run their business super well, and they have, this is one of their key tools in their whole ecosystem. So we correlate some of their success with our success. And then the third thing is the fact that we when this turns on, our revenue pops exponentially because they're all operational. And so we're really excited about that. So it is a key and critical data point that these restaurants are still going concerns through all the trials and tribulations we've had over the past 2 years.
Because I think a lot of investors, so the story is, for anybody that's new, is, primarily your business up till now has been mostly in Canada. And of course, Canada has been really shut down in the last years, but now you're expanding into the US. So really the big opportunity is starting this year, is in the coming weeks, months. you're going to be rolling into the U.S. market. So I think you mentioned two things which I think are really, really interesting. Your focus, so your customers for the platform are mostly these, kind of larger operators. It's not the mom and pop. It's not like, the diner on the corner. It's really, operators that have, multiple locations. They might be doing, I don't know, can you have a dollar amount? Like what kind of revenues are they doing? You have a metric is like 50 million or something?
Yeah, 50-60 million dollars
Okay.
in yeah
So
revenue.
it's a tremendous validation because these are, look, to run that type of operation, I mean, you need, these are sophisticated operators, right? So it's a tremendous validation if they're using your service and they're super, super focused, on their operating margins. And so if they're using XTM, the Today program, this is the name of the thing is called the Today. That's the getting paid the wages and tips today for the employees. So if they're using that, I mean, again, it's a tremendous validation, and especially going forward, I think when you go into the U.S. market, I mean, it's a great case study because you already have this, years of success that you could point to.
That's exactly right. We worked out all the bugs. We worked out all the issues. We went to market with MVP. We have now transitioned to a 2.0 platform, which is super sophisticated, cloud-based. We've added value features like rewards and cashback rewards, and a number of other things that add value to the user. So we are now ready to go into this market, this US market, which is, Canada times 10, and really feel like we're in a good position to be able to dominate.
Okay. And by the way, we're going to get into audience questions. We have some good questions coming in, which we're gonna get into in a few minutes. But okay, so the number I mentioned before is the 1 trillion. That's really the U.S. I use the U.S. number, so I don't know. I guess Canada is a little extra there, but so the markets that you're addressing really is. It's not just restaurants, so it's services. It could be so anywhere where you have, I guess, personal services like talking about haircuts. I mean, everything where people get, they get paid and they also get tips, right? So your platform, this Today program, essentially, it's an app that they're able to get their money, the tips, whether it's pooled or everything else, that same day.
Yeah, that's right. And so in Canada, gratuities are treated in a slightly different way than they are in the US. And so in the US, we know that gratuities in most states are taxed, which is why we're entering that market through payroll. And I think it was asked on the last broadcast, what makes XTM different? Why do we think we can compete in the US market? And the answer to that is again, that we are bespoke to the into the hospitality space and services space. This is a very special sector, and they talk a different language. And
The restaurant side. In other words, it's like basically you can own that niche. It's not like Square or whatever. It's really it's a different whole different thing. So
that's exactly right. And the ecosystem in that environment is so important for the margins of those restaurants. It's kind of a, coming back after what everyone's been through for the past couple of years is almost a reset. The whole industry almost needs a reset. Margins were already thin, and now there's increased pressure to be even more efficient. And so, we don't charge the restaurant at all for our service. We are near free to the end user. We only pass on a couple of costs. So there's little friction. There's little reason for a restaurant not to treat XTM solution as a must-have, as an essential, just like they would a point of sale.
okay, so it's really interesting that you just said it's essentially a must-have. I think it's going to become more and more apparent, especially today. Where you have these, staffing shortages, recruiting issues, a lot of issues, and and you're giving these restaurants a major, anybody who's using your system, a real competitive advantage in terms of recruiting and retention, because right now, somebody, if somebody wants to, be a waiter at a restaurant, they have, they can go anywhere, right? So, and if they can go to a place that says, hey, get paid the same day with your tips and everything, pool, and we can talk about the pool, it gives them an edge. And one thing, Marilyn, you mentioned last time, which I thought was very interesting, is that this industry is very there's a lot of turnover, right, in the restaurant and the service. There's a lot of turnover. But what happens is when these people go to a new location, which may not have the Today program, the XTM program, they're essentially becoming your ambassador. So they're going to tell them, hey, why don't you have this or whatever? Or, this is so you have this real opportunity for massive viral growth, because it's this word of mouth. Just you have essentially these are free salespeople working for you. The more
Yeah.
success you have, the more success you're going to have. It's really going to get amplified.
Yeah, churn can be our friend for sure. And there is a high turnover in this business. Our stats have demonstrated that. But just like you said, Jack, when you've got an employee that's moving over to possibly another restaurant because they move around a lot, they find that they'll ask their employer, are you on the Today program? If you're not, well, you should be. And if they are, they don't need a new mobile wallet. They don't need a new card. They don't need it. All they need to do is get paid by their next employer. So we can have one person can be paid by a number of different employers. So that's one thing we've worked into the foundation of our solution. But again, yes, they become ambassadors. It becomes a viral program. We have a very low cost of acquisition for our customer base. For those two reasons. The second reason is because when we sign a restaurant, it's typically mandated to all employees that they have to convert to our program. Wouldn't make a lot of sense to vary it. It would probably create operational friction. So we sign one client and we get 10,000 users, and that's how we've been able to grow so quickly.
Okay, so everybody who's watching this program, what they really want to know is, what's going to be the path for this thing to be a $5 stock, and this get to a $500, $800 billion market cap. We've had success in the fintech sector before. One of our big winners last year was Peak Fintech. That was a PKK, a stock that went from 70 cents post split to $14. It was a 20 bagger. So I think people are wondering, is lightning going to strike twice? I think we have a good shot over here. So let's go into some numbers, like what's going to make this a 10 bagger. So first, let's talk about how should the stock be valued, because I think one of the reasons the stock might be kind of undervalued where it is and why there's an opportunity is, I think investors, because right now you don't have institutional following so much, right? It's mostly retail investors,
Right.
and they may not really understand, like, how do you value this business? Is it based on, the gross dollar value that's processed? Is it based on the number of employees, people on the platform, where you have that, network effect? So there's a number of ways to value. And look, we've seen, fintech companies or neobanking companies, valued at, multi-billion-dollar valuations, even at the stage where you're at right now in the VC world, right? We're seeing crazy valuations.
Yeah.
So what should investors focus on, where they're going to get a sense of how fast the company is scaling and how big the opportunity is going to be?
That's a great question. And I think there's a couple of data points today that you should look at. And then as we grow, and we'll grow organically and we'll also grow through M&A, those data points will broaden. But what's really important, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that once you get a client base, then you can further monetize that client base. And I don't mean exploit. I mean, add more value. We talked a little bit about this last week. So adding more value could include things like, if you have a half a million person user base, and you add a feature, call it microcredit, for a couple of bucks a month, which is high value to the end user. It's getting them out of the trap of payday loans. It's offering them microcredit to get to be able to manage their $400 emergency type of event that might happen in their lives. So for $2 a month, then all of a sudden you're adding $1 million a month in revenue to your earnings. So that's one very important thing. The other thing is GDV. And GDV is the gross dollar value load, to the amount of money we move across our system. As we increase the point of sale spend and encourage and incentivize people to spend more at point of sale, our revenue increases. And we've seen it happen. We know when people first come on our platform.
Sorry, Marilyn, the mic, someone went mute again. I think on your system. Okay.
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 So I'm not sure what you missed, but yeah. So what what happens is you've got people that are looking for fuller advantages, and so using it at a point of sale when they first come on. What they might do is not trust the system, and they want to take everything off of their wallet and put it in their traditional bank. But as time goes on, they trust it more. They begin to use the wallet. Our revenue increases through point of sale. So we've seen that. We know exactly how it's going to react, how it's going to be measured. And so that's the other important thing, is the gross dollar value load. And we see that climbing exponentially every month.
Okay. So, and of course, so the value of the company really, I think, is going to be based on this gross dollar value that goes through your system. Okay, so it's interesting. So you mentioned, the wallets, and, I guess we're talking about, how sticky is this? Like, how sticky is it, is the Today program with the restaurants and also with the actual employees? Like, what's the percentage that are still with you?
So right, so we have no churn at all with the restaurants. As we mentioned, 99.7% of the restaurants that we signed are still on, and the only attrition is because of not being a going concern.
But you had 99. It's like, I think the number was 99.3.
Yeah.
They're still okay. So that's
right. Yeah, exactly. So the way I equate it, it's kind of like your accountant. If you use an accountant, the only reason you're going to switch accounting firms or consultants is because there's something gone very wrong. It's just such a hassle to unwind all of that.
Yeah, it's like any type of financial, like a bank account or brokerage account, payroll. People, once you're there, something really has to go bad for you to want to switch.
Right. So we do everything that we can to be, to be perfectly right. I'm not saying that there's not blips along the way, but we fix them quickly. And I think there's a growing confidence in our platform, a growing confidence in us as a company. And we expect very little churn.
Okay. Let's get into a couple of audience questions first. Okay, interesting question. Okay, how is this different than getting a direct deposit? So, how is the Today program that you have? How is it different than getting a direct deposit to their bank account?
So in Canada, the way it's different is we treat it almost like an independent account. We don't anchor your account with the SIN number, with a social insurance number, a social security number. So it is kind of an independent account. And sometimes people don't want to commingle their gratuities with their earnings. In the US, the way we're handling it is it becomes a free mobile account. It could technically replace your current bank account. It does everything that you could do from a bank account, and it's free. So it's not that different, but we intend to add a lot of value for no cost at all to the end user, and also there's many people that are new to probably different parts of the United States. Maybe they don't have a bank account, so this provides them with their first bank account, that can completely emulate a traditional bank account.
So this is actually okay. So this is actually very, it's interesting. I for some reason I didn't think of this before, but essentially, you could replace in many cases banks. I mean, you're essentially a neobank. We've used that word before, right? So technically, I mean, essentially, XTM becomes a neobank where somebody because it's funny because once they're using the service, right? So all their income is going into this wallet, this electronic, which is your wallet. So
Yep.
then why would they need a bank account, really? Because they could do everything through your wallet, right?
That's right. And so when you think about the success of many of the neobanks out there,
Yeah.
like Sean, for example, and Dave and those guys, they've had huge success in acquiring end users because people want alternatives. If you think about the days when, yeah, we talked about that, about buying records and how everything's in the cloud these days. So banking is as well. And so what we're doing is we're just taking a different path. We're going at that path through the services space. And these are people with special requirements. Again, we want to make sure that we provide same day earnings for them so that they have that feeling of financial inclusion, that they can track their transactions on a minute by minute basis and manage their money and really take them to a place where they've got a tracking history, a credit history, and they can, buy a house or get a loan if they want one. So these are all the things we're working at with this demographic.
Okay, so okay, so it's pretty interesting, and because you're dealing with these kind of mostly larger, I don't know what the word is, larger operators, basically. It's not so much mom and pops, but larger restaurant and service operators. You're bringing massive numbers of users onto your system, so it's not like you have to acquire new customers one by one, like Dave or some of these other neobanks, fintech, etc. So I think essentially one of the things here is going to be, as as kind of your base grows, XTM is going to become extremely valuable, potentially for a traditional bank to acquire at some point, for a larger amount, like in the $1 billion range.
Yeah, that's quite possible. There's a number of different sectors that we could add tremendous value to. And you asked, why would we be a $5 stock? We've really focused on fundamentals. So we've got a very, very strong base, strong team, strong accounting fundamentals, really good business intelligence. All of that is in place. We are poised for growth. We're poised to scale and scale exponentially. And it's been, 2 years head down, really working hard to get this broad base, and now we feel we're ready.
Okay, so real quick, so how many number of shares out fully diluted now?
It's 165 million.
Okay, so the market, so again, market cap is 60 million right now. It's
Right.
very little. I mean, it's a less than a private market value. Like either there's private private companies being funded by VCs at $1 billion valuations that have and okay, so just to get for anybody that's new, where are you now in terms of let's go through a couple things. So the gross dollar value that's going into your system, and then your revenues that you're actually reporting, and then we can talk about what's up ahead.
Yeah, so we'll report Q4 on deadline very soon. But what I will talk about is and what we've reported on is our growth, our GDP growth month over month. We're looking at 15-20% month over month growth, and again, that's we still have the volatility.
With lockdown still. That's not it. Okay, so 15 to 20% month over month growth, which is a big number because all of a sudden that adds up very quickly, and that's with
always been open about is the fact that we want to own more of the ecosystem. So through M&A, we will own much more of that ecosystem, from onboarding to payroll to possibly time and attendance and other pieces of that ecosystem we have our eye on, and we expect to be able to talk about that a little bit more in the very near future.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I forgot. So in terms of the GDV, the dollar, what's the number, right? Like what's the latest number that you have that you could share?
Well, so we won't. We haven't reported on December, but we're moving about close to 25 to 30 million a month in GDV.
Okay, so we're talking about almost 400, 500 million a year and growing. It's a snowball. It's like
right.
it increases, and that's just Canada. We haven't talked about the US yet.
Correct.
Okay. And what percentage of that goes to your kind of like drops to your revenue that becomes you count as revenues?
So you can calculate 1.54% gross
Okay.
is our revenue. So, I've got little messages from my CFO saying no guidance, no.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can do the math and you can
Yeah.
figure it out. And you can also figure out the fact that most restaurants, if you took the whole year, they're at about, at the very best 50% capacity. It's more like 25%. But again, Canada is seeded. It's ready to go. We are really looking towards the US. The US
Okay.
is where we see the magic.
So but the foundation kind of is set because you're going to basically pour over the whole system to the U.S. market. But what's interesting is essentially the number you mentioned. So you're getting like, let's say 1.54, whatever it is. But as you layer in more services, all of a sudden, your revenues can explode. Your revenues can explode 4x, 5x, like that. All you need to do is just add one or two key services, whether it's like you mentioned what is it, like microcredit. Yeah. So there is some things where which could really instantly, it becomes like a fire hydrant of cash coming in. Okay, so the big question I think is, and we'll try to wrap up. I know you're on a tight schedule today, but so the big thing that people are focusing on, okay, what's the plan for the U.S. market? Where are you now, and when's the U.S. expansion going to go full blast?
So as mentioned, we field testing. Everything's going very well. There's a big call this afternoon with a large group of people. What we hope to be our, among our first onboardings, and we will have something to report to you in very short order about our who we're working with in the U.S. and what the trajectory looks like. We're very confident about it.
Okay, so the U.S. market is basically happening right now as we speak. We're gonna, okay, which is I think one of the big catalysts here. What about? I know we touched briefly on possible M&A opportunities because again, one of the things that you have going is you want to have more services that you can layer in, but at the same time, other ways where you could expand. Strategic acquisitions where you could. Get more users. What's happening there? You have anything that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, so we're looking for companies that are kind of like if we're the peanut butter, they're the honey. If we're the peanut butter, they're the jam. Where we don't compete with each other, but we complement each other. So again, payroll is super important for us, and we're already integrated with a great company, and we intend to go into the U.S. market on all 50 states with this company. We're looking at onboarding. It's that's a complicated piece of our value proposition because of the KYC, the know your customer that we have to do on each onboarding. So these are the kind of acquisitions that we're looking at. Tip pooling is another very important one. We talked about that a little bit last week too, where a lot of restaurants apply a formula to be able to distribute their gratuities throughout their restaurant in a more even fashion. We've added that module to our solution, and we'll charge a small monthly fee for that. But in this business, small fees add up really quickly because of the volume.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. Again, it's very similar to some of the most successful business models. The biggest stock success stories have been those where they were like kind of, I guess, before you had the word neo banking. They were like whether it was Paychex or ADP in the payroll processing, companies that basically add that help move money through the system and get a small piece of it. It really adds up. Let's get to a couple of audience questions here. Andre Philippe asked Marilyn, does XTM plan to have a buy now, pay later service on the Today program? The car could become tip leverage consumer tool empowering the service.
Andre Philippe, I saw that question last time, and we love that, and that is definitely something that is on our roadmap. Buy now, pay later, for sure. It's along with our whole credit and microcredit vision.
Okay. Okay. I think you touched on this briefly. Lars is asking, U.S. plan for the U.S. I guess the question maybe is like, when can we see the first big announcement? Like within 4 weeks, 3 weeks, one
I would
day?
say sooner. I would say sooner, but we have started. Due diligence is a very rigorous process in the U.S. So we're taking our pipeline. The due diligence has been initiated, and we are going. Q1 for sure. We will see traction in the U.S.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. Pizza. How deeply are you connected with Dine brand or Yum brands?
Yes, we have a number of Yum Brands restaurants on our platform.
And those are just for anybody that doesn't. Is that like pizza? What do they operate? They operate like, I think, Pizza Hut, or no? What do they?
Yes.
Pizza
Uh,
Hut, and
yeah,
a bunch of.
a number of different, very important and lofty brands are part of the Yum brand family for sure. I'd have
Okay.
to, yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people are asking. Okay. Multiple questions. Okay. The numbers, the Q4 numbers, those are coming out. I think
Q4, we're reporting end of April.
end of April. Oh, end of April. Q4 is end of April.
Yes. We
Okay.
report, that's the requirement, is we'll report Q4 end of April.
Okay.
Which is, yeah.
Ralph asking, any news for the 2021 Restaurant Leadership Conference that XTM was invited to?
I don't think it's happened yet, but we do have a speaking spot.
Okay, maybe he's talking about the 22, or was it the Restaurant Leadership?
Oh, any news? I would have to. I honestly, I'm not really familiar with what. Can't even remember when that was. There were so many conferences canceled in
Right.
2021. I can't remember what happened and what didn't happen.
Right. Yeah, there was like a CSE. Was it the computer show barely happened? Okay, Simon, great work, Marilyn. Are you still working with NetSense technology? And when can we expect material news, quote unquote?
So NetSense, yes, definitely friendly with NetSense. NetSense is they've reorganized and redirected the way their business is going slightly, but we talk regularly. And when you talk about material news, I would say there's material news for sure in the next quarter.
Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so to wrap up, Marilyn, what are the kind of news flow could we expect to see in the coming weeks? What kind of news you have potential M&A, you have US, there's a bunch of things on tap that we have.
We took your advice, Jack, and the advice of our audience too. That we're going to announce new sign-ons every time we sign on a new client in the U.S. and a couple of really big ones in Canada. We're going to announce those. We're going to announce some executive appointments. We're going to announce M&A and of course our earnings.
Okay, so just to add, I think in case anybody does, so basically we talked about. I said, hey, it'd be great if, because one of the things is people, you have so many clients, and you have things going on constantly. You're bringing on new clients, onboarding new clients all the time. So I said, hey, Marilyn, it would be great if you just report every time you get a bunch of new ones. You just report it as a news release. So just gives people an idea of how fast you're really starting to scale things, and kind of the cadence. And I think investors would really they'd appreciate it. Maybe you can do some case studies. So as we see that, I think it's going to get a lot more eyeballs on the stock.
Yep.
And people are going to really kind of see like under the hood. Hey, wow, this is really, there's a lot going on here. So okay.
Yeah.
I think there was some question. Okay, so I think there was confusion about the quarterly funds. Q4. The Q4. What was the question? Okay. When will
so the CSE requires us, and the OTC QB requires us to report on Q4 at the end of April, which is exactly what we will do. Yeah.
Okay. So that answers that. Okay. So I think we've covered everything. Marilyn, on that note, I want to thank you, and we look forward to hearing more, positive developments in the coming weeks, new clients onboarding, U.S. M&A activity, all those good things.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jack.